Morning guys, Tater here, welcome to Tater Games. Today we are talking about the rise and popularity of .io games, and we are also going to explain to you a little secret that someone took and I caught them out. So let's do it. So for the past few days I've been playing a lot of Battlegrounds, and of course there is a very long loading time for that type of stuff, so you kind of have to do something else. So what better thing to do than to play Slither or Agar.io? For those who do not know, Slither and Agar.io are both these things that we like to call IO games, and nobody really knows why the domain name just kind of took off. I think it is purely because there is such a catchiness to having IO at the end of any word. For example, Boomio or Penio. It's just a very catchy title, and it also, I believe, caters to the reasoning behind why these games' titles are so memorable. Pretty much someone has always made an IO game for nearly every word. Believe me, I'm making one right now, and I am struggling to find a decent domain name. I legitimately had a dictionary open, and I've just been going through these basic names to try and get a name that is actually catchy, but also fits the title and is also bloody available. So I have a few theories on why these games are so popular, and I also have a few theories about certain games tricking people into thinking a game is actually multiplayer when really it is not. You got your classics, you got Slither and of course Agar.io, but then there was another one that I found the other day called paper.io. You see, I must admit that it was a very catchy game. The only problem with the game was that it was not multiplayer, which is kind of a given it was an IO game. However, there was nothing that said it was multiplayer. However, it behaved like multiplayer because these guys programmed in incredible AI. So if you haven't played paper.io, go download it. I do believe it's on the App Store and thing. Again, this is not a sponsored video. Don't worry, I'm just trying to catch these guys out because they make it seem like it is. They gave it so much polish and refinement. The game looks amazing and is made really, really well. And despite it not being multiplayer, I still believe it is a very great game. The cheeky bastards. Anyway, I figured it all out when I noticed that the players were actually just kind of repeating the same process. Whenever they fight against you, it's kind of repetitive, like you've seen it happen before. Whenever you have a large amount of territory, none of the other players actually go in and take that territory. It was quite easy to figure out from there, and then all you need to do is test the theory out. So I made myself very vulnerable in certain areas, and of course a normal player like myself would actually go to try and destroy the other player's tail. However, it didn't happen like that. Proud to say that a lot of you game developers out there probably have the same thoughts when you're playing other games. You're like, is this actually what it seems to be? How did they make this? What actually constitutes a damn IO game is my question, and I don't have an answer to it really. So I thought that IO games were just very simple multiplayer based games. Just because Agar.io was so popular, it's kind of the standing stone for a lot of other games. Slither as well is another one that is of course very, very simple. We can probably make that in about a week or two. The only thing about these games is that they almost have perfect networking. So why exactly am I telling you guys this? You guys know all of this stuff. Well, I'm in a firm belief that these games are actually going to craft our beginners that want to make bigger games. So obviously a lot of people on this channel come here because of the MOBA tutorials. So they want to make big games. They want to make a MOBA. However, if you can't make something like Agar.io, I don't believe you can make a MOBA. I believe it's a great way to actually introduce a lot of beginners into the gaming industry, or the game development industry I should say. So it's a great genre to start with. You've got all the basics in there. You've got gameplay of course, which is very, very simple to make. You've also got your models or sprites, which again, very, very simple to make if you're doing something like Agar.io or Slither. You've also got sound, and I noticed that a lot of these games actually don't have sound, so it's kind of up to you how you want to interpret that. There must be a reason for it though, because pretty much none of them do. Finally, there is networking, the biggest thing that I get questions for all the time. Everyone is always asking me, how do I make this multiplayer thing work? How do I use this multiplayer SDK? What do I use to make a multiplayer game? The answer is simple. There are a million ways to make a multiplayer game. The IO style format is just one of them. There are millions. There is also the other Call of Duty method, which I like to talk about. So Call of Duty style is a client-based thing where the client is actually the host of the actual game. Every time you shoot, it goes through the client system. If they leave, then there is a host renewal and a new host is actually introduced. So the networking side of Agar.io is slightly different. The host is the server, meaning all the commands that you actually want to do with your little snake or your little cell is actually sent through a server and then sent to all clients, including yourself. If you guys are as good as you think, I challenge you to actually make an IO game. I've been looking at a lot of them and I noticed that they all have very unique gameplay mechanics. You guys are very, very smart people. You guys always pitch ideas, but I never see ideas that you guys pitch being made into its full extent. With certain obvious exceptions, of course. A lot of people that I talk to actually send me screenshots all the time and they are making a game that they actually intended to make, which is amazing. They're learning a lot. They're doing all types of great stuff. And at the end of the day, this entire project doesn't even need to be networked, as proven by paper.io. All you need to do is get a sort of web browser-based system going there, make a website, chuck your game on there, and see where that takes you. Also add revenue, I guess, which could help fund your next project. I'm telling you guys this because a lot of you guys are actually striving for things that are not really accomplishable by one single person. However, a game like this is accomplishable by one single person, and one day, probably within the next week or 2 weeks, I am going to actually release a video on how I made the entire IO game that I am going to make. I'm going to put it up, I'm going to chuck some ads on there, and of course then we are going to make a little bit of revenue off it, and I will teach you guys how to do every little step of the way eventually. So yeah, thank you all for watching. Hopefully I get to see a few IO games, which I have never actually seen on the Discord channel. I've only ever seen kind of realistic sort of 3D stuff. So that's it for me today. I just thought I'd talk a little bit about that stuff. You know, you guys love these talks, I hope. If you do like these talks, there is some banana bread in the comments section below. And for those of you who want to listen to me rant on about some other stuff, stick around. As per usual, thank you everyone for watching. I'm going to see you guys on the second channel after this. We're just going to rant on about some other stuff, obviously. So if you're leaving us right now, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.